Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, where we are presented, as always, by our good friends at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. A feel-good Friday edition of the program here. We're with you guys for the next couple of hours, breaking down all things across the sports landscape. We'll go from preps to pros. We might even go from pros to preps and back again by the course these next couple wrap up. But looking forward to a fun one. As always, well, never joined by Calvin White on a Friday, but excited to have our good friend and colleague in the saddle with us nonetheless. Producer Mark Rogers behind the scenes making the magic happen. Calvin, good afternoon. Thanks for filling in, pinch hitting in a sense on a Friday here, my man.
Yeah, the rest of our Main Street media cohorts, along with Blaine Keller, are out covering state tournament volleyball today. My state tournament volleyball wrapped up yesterday, so I was available to fill in on this weekend warm up. Excited to do this, and then head out and watch what hopefully will be a good high school football game later tonight.
Hey, you're in a good spot because the Friday edition of the program, you kind of already get the juices going before you set out to your respective game. But you're right, it is going to be a fun show. We got a lot of stuff to get into. I'll give you the kind of meat and potatoes of what's to come here in just a second. But Kelvin, you're right, and we might as well address it. Producer Mark Rogers, we're on this show a couple times a week. Somebody's on the show each and every single day. But regardless of who the hosts are, producer Mark's got to make all the magic happen each and every single day. And even though, Calvin, you mentioned it, we were all at the state volleyball championships, which began Tuesday, ran through today. Producer Mark was hard at work, and he had a show lined up for us Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And it's one of those deals, Calvin. We were in a group chat, trying to figure out who's available, who's not available. You really, unfortunately, when you get to tournament time, as you well know, you kind of don't know until the game is played, and we were unable to be with you guys live, but we're excited to be here this afternoon.
Yeah, it's a bunch of situations where times at future dates depend on what happened in the earlier days. And I remember Mark was going back and forth with us like a day or two ago. I was supposed to do the show yesterday if Clarksville volleyball lost at 9:30. But, they won at 9:30 to play again at 5, and Mark was like, "Well, when will you know if the 9:30 game will be over?" I said, "Well, about noon." And he was like, "Well, that's not enough time to put highlights together. So let's just throw some highlights together, go cover volleyball, and then kind of figure it out as we go." And I think we did a pretty good job this week of kind of working with what we had and bringing you our first live show since Monday, I believe.
Absolutely. And we say all that to give a true salute and a true tip of the cap to our fearless warrior behind the scenes, Mark Rogers, making the magic happen. So with that out of the way, we will get you guys an update on what transpired in volleyball action at the state tournament level a little bit later in the program. But we got a big show. It's always easy to kind of fill things out on a Friday, but it's even a little easier this week, Calvin, because we got so much stuff that we can tap into over the next couple hours. And we'll walk backwards. At the end of the show, it'll have a new twist, but we might be able to sneak in some old content as well. I'll explain at the end of the show. But Calvin and I will go through the 10-game wonder slate, 10 college football games against the spread, 10 hopeful winners in those games. And our good friend Mo Patton, he's out today doing a little bit of this, doing a little bit of that, volleyball and football. So we'll hopefully have Mo's picks tapered in at the end of the show. But if not, Calvin and I will give you at least our thoughts on that. Coming up, folks, in the second hour as well, we will talk college football, a massive SEC slate in terms of numbers and in terms of importance. Yet again, stop me if you've heard this before, but there's a lot of big games in the SEC this weekend. We'll talk Ole Miss OU. We'll talk game day. Yeah, game day, because it's just down the road here at West End over at Vanderbilt for the first time in a long time. The first time since the last time, I guess, Calvin, as Missouri comes to town here in that big top 25 showdown. Also, Texas A&M and LSU, a battle of top 25 foes. We'll go through all of that. I'm going to pick Calvin's brain on the Billy Napier fallout, as he is now adios, as the Gators look to regroup and then eventually hire their new head coach. And we'll also get some other college football thoughts. Again, that's coming up in the second hour. Also in that second hour, the Titans. Yes, the Titans. They do go on the road. They're a big underdog this week. Calvin and I will break down how we think the local professional football team will get it on at Indy this weekend. We'll also bring you up to speed on any other Titans/NFL news and notes. And believe me, folks, there are a lot of Titans/NFL news and notes to get into. In the first hour, here in just a matter of moments, it's a big weekend. It's a big night. More on it in a minute, of course. But our good friend VALAIR SHABILLA will stop by from 615 Soccer. We'll talk all things NSC as they begin their playoff journey tonight. The first of two scheduled legs versus Inter Miami. This one's down in South Florida at 7 p.m. And we'll pick VALAIR's brain to kind of get a lay of the land, as it were, in terms of the MLS playoffs. We will talk, speaking of playoffs, Calvin, the postseason, we've made it. The holy grail for baseball fans. The World Series is upon us. But because the way the world works, kind of overshadowed, at least here locally, by some big-time MLB/college baseball news. Calvin and I will get into that a little bit more. But a big show lined up and a big rundown ahead. So, Calvin, I think I've burned approximately half of our preamble here, going through what's on tap. But it's safe to say there is a lot on tap. And if you're ready, partner, can we get into the rundown this afternoon?
Let's do it.
All right, we're going to lock and load, boys and girls. We're going to give you yesterday's results. We're going to give you this weekend's schedule. We're going to bring you the Friday rundown.
This is the rundown.
To the results we go, and high school football was played last night. Only a handful of games played, especially here in the mid-state, but we had two of them on the docket. And one of them we broadcast on Main Street Preps. Yours truly was on hand for this one as Whitwell defeats Joe Burns 15-7. Pretty good game, even though it was low scoring last night. Again, 15-7 was your final there. Shelbyville staves off a late rally from Hendersonville, winning that game 42-31. More football later in this rundown. Volleyball scores from yesterday. Calvin's Clarksville squad defeats Blackman 3-1. Briarcrest Christian defeating CPA 3-2. It was Clarksville with a 3-2 victory over Arlington. Creekwood, the team I was covering earlier in the week, they picked up two different wins in the consolation bracket to take home third place, defeating Signal Mountain 3-1. Crockett County 3-0. Also, we saw Middle Tennessee Christian with a 3-1 win over Silverdale Academy. Summertown 3, CSAS 0, and Summertown also shut out Merrill Hyde. But wait, there's more, Calvin. Girls soccer from last night. CPA picking up a 3-0 win over St. Agnes Academy. Clarksville with a 3-0 victory over Henry County. It was Fairview 8, Sycamore 0. Franklin with a 2-1 victory over Summit. Hendersonville 2, Gallatin 0. STEM Academy by that same score, 2-0. Defeats Lead Academy. It was Station Camp 1, Liberty Creek 0. Merrill Hyde with a shutout in convincing fashion, 9-0 versus Smith County. Stewart's Creek turning back Siegel 1-0, and Tullahoma shutting out Murfreesboro Central Magnet. That score was 2-0. I'm at the end of the results prep-wise, but there were a couple more to bring you guys from last night. On the ice, we'll talk a little bit later about the Preds as they picked up a 2-1 victory at home versus the Vancouver Canucks. And Thursday night football at the NFL level, it was the Chargers defeating the Vikings. That score was 37-10.
Getting into our Friday night prep football schedule, Middle Tennessee Christian is at Asheville Christian Academy. Glencliff is at Battle Creek. Innsworth is at Baylor. Beach hosting Portland. Bolivar Central hosting Loretto. Antioch is at Clarksville. Dixon County is at Clarksville Northeast. Kirkwood is at Clarksville Northwest. Columbia Academy hosting Davidson Academy. Concord Christian hosts Providence Christian. Creekwood hosts Montgomery Central. Houston County travels to East Nashville. Greenwood from Kentucky travels to East Robertson. Cheatham County is at Fairview. Father Ryan hosts Brentwood Academy. Fayetteville hosts Richland. Franklin hosts Summit. Clarksville Academy is at Franklin Christian. Lebanon travels to Gallatin. Forest is at Giles County. Good Pasture hosting BGA. Franklin Road Academy is at Grace Christian out of Franklin. Springfield is at Greenbrier. Harpeth hosts Waverly. Henry County hosts Kenwood. Station Camp is at Hunters Lane. Brentwood at Independence. Clay County at Innovation Academy. And CPA is at Knoxville Catholic.
Other scores or other games on the schedule. By the way, Kevin, you mentioned that Giles County Forest game. I'm tattletaling on myself a little bit here, but my high school class reunion is going to be held at that game tonight for homecoming. I'm going to let everybody else guess the number of years, but it ain't 10. How about that? Let's go to the remainder of our schedule for tonight. Lincoln County's at Lawrence County this evening. It'll be Centennial at Lawson. Mount Pleasant traveling to Lewis County. Watertown is on the road at Liberty Creek. Briarcrest Christian visiting Lipscomb Academy. Spring Hill taking a trip to Lewisburg to meet the Marshall County Tigers. It'll be MBA at McCauley. Cane Ridge is visiting McGavock. Cookville's on the road at Mount Juliet. Friendship Christian is at Mount Juliet Christian. Ezell Harding is at Nashville Christian. Maybe a little something more on Nashville Christian later in this show. Stay tuned. Rossview is at Nolansville. Stewart's Creek's on the road at Oakland. Hillsboro is traveling to Page. White House and Pearl Cone will get it on in Nashville tonight at 7 p.m. Columbia is at Pope John Paul II. Coffee County is visiting Ravenwood. Riverdale is at Rockvale. Blackman is at Siegel. And Laverne is at Smyrna. Final few games here on this Friday night. Decatur County Riverside at Summertown. White House Heritage at Sycamore. DCA is traveling to Trinity Christian. John Overton is at West Creek. Maplewood making the trip to Westmoreland tonight. Stratford is visiting Whites Creek. Good little metro battle there. Green Hill is at Wilson Central, and Eagleville is at Zion Christian. More volleyball to bring you guys up to speed on later. We'll give you the results in kind of one of our final segments. But Brentwood was set to meet Summit at 10 a.m. in the 3A championship. Gordonsville and Eagleville, we're going to get it on at the 1A level at 1 p.m. And at 4 o'clock in 2A volleyball action, it's Dyer County versus Valor Collegiate. The NBA schedule featuring local teams tonight. The Grizzlies are hosting the Heat. That game is set to begin at 7 p.m. on FanDuel Sports South. NSC at Inter Miami. More on them when Valair pops by in a moment. 7 p.m. kickoff. You can see it on Apple TV, but you can also see it on FS1 this evening. Game 1 of the World Series cranks up at 7 o'clock. The first pitch comes your way then, and it comes your way on Fox as the Dodgers head north of the border to take on the Toronto Blue Jays. Calvin, to you.
Saturday girls sectional. Saturday girls sectional.
It works.
Saturday girls sectional matchups. Father Ryan is at Knoxville Webb. DCA is at Concord Christian. BGA is at Evangelical Christian. USJ is at Franklin Road Academy. And we don't have it on here, but I just looked it up only because I knew they were playing. Clarksville High is hosting Houston. Local college football action. Campbellsville is at Cumberland. Western Illinois is at Tennessee State. Missouri is at Vanderbilt for college game day. North Alabama is at Austin Peay. And Tennessee is at Kentucky at 6:45 on the SEC Network on Saturday. In the NHL, the Kings are traveling to Nashville to play the Preds at 7 p.m. The Pacers travel to Memphis to play the Grizzlies. And Game 2 of the World Series between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays is tomorrow at 7 p.m. In Sunday NFL action, the Titans travel up to Indianapolis to play the Colts. Kickoff is set for 3:25 on CBS. And the Stars travel. Is that supposed to be under the NFL?
No, but close this out nonetheless.
The Preds don't play in the NFL.
They give up a lot of goals, but not enough to be considered a football
They
score.
do. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, those were your scores. That was your schedule. And that concludes today's rundown.
That brings us into our top story. Top story, as always, is brought to you by the fine folks at Piggly Wiggly over at Neely's Mill in Columbia. They're open from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m., and make sure that you check them out for your delicious daily deli lunch options. They also offer hand-cut meats, and everything is cost plus 10 at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill in Columbia, presenting our top story. We got a double dose of controversy, Calvin, and we'll start with the one that really nationally reverberated yesterday. Word coming down as early as Thursday morning. The NBA and the FBI, two acronyms, but two acronyms that you don't want to necessarily hear paired together. But that is indeed the case, as the FBI has brought illegal gambling charges to the league on a number of different fronts. This is a wide and sprawling story. Could probably do a whole 2 hours on it. But the gist of it is, at the crux of everything, Portland Blazers, Trailblazers head coach Chauncey Billups, Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, and former player Damon Jones all were indicted, and I believe all three appeared in court yesterday into two different probes from the FBI in terms of illegal gambling. Billups, more on him in a minute, but Rozier and Jones, kind of the story that we've grown accustomed to hearing, unfortunately, in the last year or two, Calvin. Kind of your classic, hey, this guy had a player prop out there and mysteriously his plays or his stats were under. Rozier checking himself out of a game back in early March, and kind of tipping off the betting world that something was amiss, so much so that the FBI gets involved. He's kind of pinched there. Damon Jones, kind of former teammate of LeBron James, once his personal shooting coach, as a matter of fact. He's kind of linked in this as well. That's kind of one arm of all of this, Calvin. That's kind of, we saw it at the MLB level. We've seen it at the NBA before. And that's something that kind of the modern sports betting landscape lends itself to these unfortunate headlines. On the other hand, though, Chauncey Billups, 49, just coached a game on Wednesday night, and then Thursday morning he was in handcuffs. He is linked to an illegal poker game operation where it is charged that he was kind of touted as the get-in guy. You know, hey, come sit and play with Chauncey Billups at this high-stakes poker game, wooing in some of these bigger bankroll type individuals. All sounds, on the up and up, except Calvin, the mafia is involved. Just when you thought you hadn't heard from the mafia in a while, these guys are still out there. And not only are they out there, they're infiltrating poker games, maybe perhaps even infiltrating sports betting schemes. Ugly investigation all around for not only these three individuals, but also the NBA and the sports betting landscape at large.
Yeah, and the thing that I always think about first when I see stuff like this is like these are dudes that make millions of dollars already, and they think that they have to go like rig poker games and gambling sites to make more money. And I'm not so sure that I wanted to be, or that I would want to be caught up in a illegal gambling ring with uh, a mafia crime family. That's something straight out of The Godfather, and I don't think that's something I would want to be caught up in. But I mean, we saw this a couple years ago with Jonte Porter, who played for the Raptors. He was out there just throwing up air balls because people were betting the under on his stats. And over the last, ever since this came out, you see all the sports TV shows. Whenever they start talking about it, the producers on the TV show just happen to pull down the ads for the gambling sites that sponsor them. Yeah. And it's kind of a double-edged sword because it's become such a problem in just about every level of sports. But like, if you turn on any game or talk show anywhere that has anything to do with sports nowadays, they've got a gambling sponsorship somewhere. And I just don't know how they can kind of get it under control at this point.
Yeah, it's a wide sweeping investigation, and it's not just, this sounds like there's a little more. It's not just if Rozier, and we even saw this at the college baseball level with the Alabama head coach, and large bets coming in. And that's the thing, right? When you're betting on Terry Rozier under props, you're already kind of a little bit on the radar of these sports books. When you're betting $200,000 on a Terry Rozier under prop, you're really on the radar. And so they flag these things just by nature of the way that the sports books operate. Everything is digitalized. And when you see a massive wager come in on a kind of obscure player and a kind of an obscure prop, that definitely raises some alarm bells. The fascinating part to all this for me, Calvin, was the poker angle with Billups, who, by the way, in his post-game press conference, you cannot script this, but he said, literally in referring to his team's loss Wednesday night, he said, well, we just got to let the chips fall where they may. I mean, the timing was awful for Billups, great for everybody else. It was just, you couldn't script it any better than that. But the crazy part, Calvin, they say the FBI alleged these defendants used altered shuffling machines where you could mark the cards. There was a scheme maybe where contact lenses or glasses were used. I'm visualizing, like something out of a Marvel movie here, where you can kind of have X-ray vision on these cards and get a good look and see what your opponent might be holding. But it is a nasty kind of sprawling investigation, a double-edged sword for the NBA, we haven't had a live show this week, Calvin, but the games and the play on the court have been phenomenal. We saw 2 games go to overtime last night. We've already seen a couple already. So this is kind of a black eye, unfortunately, on what has been a fantastic start to the NBA season. We will have much more on this undoubtedly as it kind of continues to develop. And believe me, folks, it will continue to develop as the indictments just came down yesterday. Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and Terry Rozier, all part of an FBI probe investigation and now indictment into various illegal gambling measures there. We're going to take a quick timeout. We had a second part for our top story presented by Piggly Wiggly over at Neely's Mill in Columbia. We're going to hold that for the second half of the show, but it is controversial as well, and it is a little closer to home when we talk about that one with SEC football implications. So stick around. But speaking of football, on the other side, we'll go global style football because our good friend, the one and only 615 soccer correspondent VALAIR SHABILLA, is waiting in the green room. He will join us. We will talk MLS. We will talk the playoffs. We will talk NSC. All of that with our good friend VALAIR SHABILLA after this quick timeout on Main Street Sports Today.
Got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need...
Hold on, y'all, hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
3-3.
Bee, oh, busy bee. Guys, not yet. Not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Now I'm ready, guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance, is off and it is running, folks. On the weekend warm-up edition of the program, Wade Neely here, Calvin White there, producer Mark Rogers making our magic happen behind the scenes. Our good friend VALAIR SHABILLA from 615 Soccer is gracious enough to join us here. And As I get a look at him, he looks a lot different. The location, I guess, looks a lot different than the last time Valair was with us. I think he was poolside. I think he was getting ready to, perhaps hoist a trophy with the NSC as far as the finals of the U.S. Open Cup. But even though the backdrop looks totally different, we're nonetheless excited to have our good friend Valair. What's happening, brother?
It's a lot cooler this time around, but thanks for having me, guys. Last time I was really shocked because you or Mo were texting me to get on, and I get on, and it's like two different people, and I'm like, what is happening here? I was like, is this a prank? But I thought I handled it well, under pressure to perform with some heavy hitting questions from the folks. So I think everything went fine, and yeah, we're back on. You tried to have me a couple of weeks ago, I guess, or last week, but I was in San Diego enjoying another beautiful weather town, right? So here we are now.
Well, this is playoff time. So, I mean, in theory, you need to get a little dose of playoff weather. You can't be out in San Diego. You can't be down in sunny Austin. We need you primed for the conditions here. And yes, we didn't mean to necessarily set you up, Valair. We knew that Calvin and David would take good care of you, and it sounds like they did. You guys enjoyed your time together. A lot has changed, though, in the sense that, yes, NSC hoisted the U.S. Open Cup that night. But then in the constant world of soccer, you immediately have to pivot and close out the regular season in MLS. And I guess first question, Valair, is when we evaluate just the MLS season up to this point, playoffs still to come, obviously, how would you maybe grade NSC on what you saw throughout the course of the regular season this year?
I think overall it's a huge success for Nashville. And I think I mentioned it last time actually I was on, is that regardless of what happened in the Open Cup final, this is probably one of, if not the best season MLS Nashville has ever had. And now with the Open Cup sort of victory, I do firmly believe that this is the best and most successful season in Nashville SC history. In the regular season, you look at where this team was when BJ Callahan took over to now, and even you look at it from beginning of the year to now, it's a completely different sort of league they're playing in at the moment. Coming into the year, I think you guys had me on, and I was saying, if you get into the playoffs, you get into a playing game, get into the playoffs, you're probably in a good shape in terms of a stepping stone. Now we're looking at a team that, fans were a little disappointed that they didn't get top four and get that home field advantage. So I think it's a complete, the conversation have shifted, the expectations have shifted, and that is all due to the work that the players and BJ Callahan have put together, due to how well and how successful they've been over the course of the year. Obviously, a year that had a couple of letdowns and setbacks, but at the end of the day, you're looking at a really, really good side that has taken a massive step. And honestly, all signs point towards an even bigger step happening next season.
Yeah, and Valair, I'm kind of in lockstep with you. Just watching this team, and not knocking what we saw from the previous coaching regime, because they did a lot of great things, especially in those formative years of early MLS days for NSC. But it felt like it was time for a change, and it felt like it was time to maybe see if they could take the next step. And if that was kind of how you critique things, I think this season, whatever happens going forward, has been a smashing success. You clearly did take that next step, at least in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for Nashville, they came into this more focused on the product on the pitch rather than just the results. And I think there was a huge sort of difference made from BJ Callahan from day one about the process versus the outcome. And what it comes down to is that, yes, this is a result-driven business, and you have to be getting results. You can't just have good performances and lose every game, because nobody's going to care about the good performances. But the thing is, if you are going to improve, it is easier to start improving your performances before you improve your results, because the results sometimes, it's a multitude of factors. Some of them are external, right? Referee called the penalty here, you got a red card here, whatever it may be. To where the actual process of day-to-day, how Nashville SC is playing and training, is the thing that BJ Callahan could control. And he did a really good job controlling that. And what he did is establish this cohesion, not just in the first team, but if you look at the academy product, you look at Huntsville, the second team, and obviously the first team in itself. And now you look at a team that is fully the depth is much better.
Mhm.
Look at what Mike Jacobs has done so far, building this team in BJ Callahan's vision. I think that's very important that he built a team for BJ Callahan. I think Mike Jacobs was building a team for Gary Smith when Gary Smith was in charge. And Mike Jacobs has had a huge role in this because he brought players that BJ will play. But not only that, Nashville is pretty much deep almost in every single position. There are 2 players available. And if you play either of them, you're probably in good hands, if not more players available per position. There's a couple of positions that still need a little bit more of a competition, but those were the biggest factors because now Nashville has options and it's not the
Mhm.
starting 11 who in past years have been really good, but there's just no solution after that.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, at least, of the Titans a little bit. You're 11 on either side, may be okay, but if one piece falls off, it felt like we certainly saw a big drop
Right.
off with the Titans, and we do at times with NSC. Valair, we say all that, but this is a what have you done for me lately business. I guess I'm curious, handicap your chances. We get a interesting, if nothing else, twist with the way that decision day plays out because you get a rematch immediately. 2 key matches coming up versus Inter Miami, a team that has really kind of become, in many ways, a rival for NSC in the last year, 2 years.
Yeah, I mean it's been the Miami curse. I don't think Nashville has been able to beat Miami in the last 3 years. I believe it's been since the Leagues Cup final, where it was a draw and Miami won in penalties. Nashville drew the following 2 games and lost every single game following that. So it's been a pretty dire showing against Miami, home and away. And I think one of the things that kind of stand out is that the Leagues Cup final was the first time Nashville played Miami with Messi. And
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a bunch of different opinions on the player and what he's brought to this league. One thing you can't deny is that he is the greatest of all time, literally the greatest soccer player to ever have walked this earth, playing for a team in Miami, or better yet, in Fort Lauderdale, soon to be in Miami after signing his extension. But I think Messi has to do mostly with that. I think a lot of these sort of, if you look at the game on Saturday, the decision day game, you look at a player that was pretty frustrated going into the first half, where Messi created the only pretty much couple of chances that Miami had and scored a goal himself. Came into the second half, and you could see the switch in his head, and it was just like, yeah, Nashville can huff and puff all they want, and they can't, stop Messi. And that's really what it's going to come down to. I think Messi's going to be remembering, not just Messi, the entire whoever was there last year. Inter Miami, if you remember last year, exited in the first round, this round, against Atlanta in a shocking manner. I mean, Atlanta was they were lucky to be in the playoffs, Atlanta, last year. And they lost to them. And I think that's on the brain of a lot of Miami players, a lot, and the Miami fans, of course. And I think that's going to play a factor going into this season, going to these playoffs. And look, losing 5-2 at home before starting a series against the same guys you just lost to 5-2 at home can't be a good thing. But according to the players, it's more of a motivation to kind of go out there and put in a better performance.
That's the way I would spin it. Talking with Valair SHABILLA from 615 Soccer. Yeah, if I'm in the clubhouse, I'm saying, all right, we played and had as about a bad of a collapse as you could possibly have. But guess what? That was in the past. And if nothing else, we got a little motivation on our side. Valair, I do want to ask you, and we'll pick your brain here to kind of just get the true lay of the land. Give fans the final kind of format here as we go to 2 legs, and I'm assuming, is that international style, and give us, do away goals count more? Kind of lay all that out for us as best you can.
It is not a 2 legs series, believe it or not. To start off in the playoffs, this
or best of 3, I guess.
The best of 3,
right?
yes. 2 are guaranteed. Yeah. Obviously, if whoever wins 2 can go through. Goals do not matter. That's the first thing you need to remember. Any tie goes to penalties, and whoever wins in penalties is counted as a winner of that match. If you win 2 matches, you move on to the next round. Everything following this round is a single elimination with the higher seed hosting. That's how it's going to go all the way up to MLS Cup final. It's a little bit of a weird format. I really do not like it, but that's what MLS is doing at the moment. So this best of 3 series is kind of this is their third year doing it. It's an MLS only sort of thing. I don't know what got them doing it, but Miami obviously are the higher seed, meaning that they will host game 1 and game 3 if needed. Nashville is guaranteed a home game, which will be on Saturday next week, and that will be game 2. Again, whoever gets the first 2 wins goes through. Game 3 might not even be needed.
Valair, when you kind of look at how historic this season has been for Nashville SC, like you mentioned, what does a successful playoff run look like for them? Is this kind of a championship or bust season?
I really don't think it's a championship or bust simply because they already got a trophy. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if it was any other team, and I mean any other team in the East, I would say, getting out of the first round and maybe thinking about a run then would be like exceeding expectations. Because it's Miami, if you push this series to a game 3, I think that's probably as good as you can do. And I mean that, I think Nashville SC has good players, and I think Nashville SC can win against Miami. It's not impossible, but the way Miami plays and the way, the way they are in this league, they are expected to win this cup regardless of sort of how they finish the regular season. They finished 4th in the East, which isn't, 3rd in the East, which isn't obviously their best sort of finish, but regardless of that, Miami played in the Club World Cup this year. Miami played in the Leagues Cup and made it all the way to the final. Miami played in the Champions Cup and made it all the way to the semifinal or quarterfinal. So they had a lot going on, and that's why their regular season form just wasn't as good. So I think because it's Miami, because it's playing against Messi, I would say if you can make it out of the Miami game, you are immediately a cup contender. Immediately. I mean, it changes a lot. So if you make it out of the series, you're immediately going to be a cup contender. To me, honestly, if they can push this series to a game 3, I would say this has been, again, the most successful season in Nashville history, and regardless of how this finishes.
And then I want to talk about Lionel Messi for a second. For a long time, it kind of felt like it was a 3-horse race between him and Cristiano Ronaldo and Pele for who people thought was the greatest soccer player of all time. But can you kind of put into context, what in your mind makes Lionel Messi the best soccer player of all time?
Yeah, I think to me it's just a couple of factors on the pitch. I think if you get the sort of soccer purist and the soccer people who've watched soccer their whole life, and you sit them down and you show them Messi, and then you get somebody who has never watched soccer in their life and you sit them down next to them and watch Messi, they will both agree that he's the best player on the pitch. And that's something because his talent is so apparent. And I think he falls into this category of like, he's so good and makes it look so easy, but what he's doing is extremely hard. I've heard that being said about other sports and other players, because what he's doing is not something that, simply we haven't seen before. If you want to look at the numbers and the stats, it is absolutely insane. Like that is, he is in a different stratosphere by himself. And Ronaldo got close to him in many occasions. Cristiano Ronaldo, that is, got close to him on many occasions on the stats, but Messi surpassed him in pretty much all of them, except maybe a couple here and there. I think Ronaldo has more international goals, I believe. So, but all that said, his longevity as well, in terms of not just playing, but being the best at what he's doing. I mean, this guy won the World Cup a few years ago with Argentina, in his mid-30s.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked like the best player in that World Cup. And people were writing him off already because he played for Miami and all that. He's going to win MLS MVP. I'm almost positive at this point for the second time in a row, being only the second player to ever do that. When he was in PSG, he was one of the best players there, even though Neymar and Mbappe played with him. When he was in La Liga, even till his last season, he was, if not the best player, the top 3 in La Liga. So it's not just longevity as in like, oh, he's playing. It's longevity at how great he is. And this Argentina team, one of the best teams in the world, relies on him. He is such an important part of that Argentina team, regardless of his age, 36 or whatever it may be. He is still a very important part of this Argentina team. I think 37 actually. And he's that in itself, that one of the biggest teams in the world that just won the World Cup, him being this front and center for that team just makes him, nobody has reached these heights, I believe. In soccer, there's going to be subjectivity to it. Some people will like Cristiano Ronaldo more. Some people will like Maradona or Pele or whoever, your dad or whatever. But like at the end of the day, there is also like an objective sort of way of looking at it. And to me, if you look at it objectively, he is the greatest of all time.
Talking with VALAIR Shabilla from 615 Soccer. And VALAIR, I heard somebody use this comp earlier this week after we saw him go and Messi go nuclear in the second half versus NSC. They said it would be as if him playing in the MLS is kind of as if Michael Jordan were to go in his prime and play at a pickup at a local high school game. That's the part that I'm curious of, is how close or how much beyond the talent in the rest of the league is this guy, even at 38 years old?
If he was doing this just in MLS, I would agree with that. But go look at his Argentina games against really, really tough South American national teams. He's doing that there.
For sure. I'm just trying to get a grasp on just how much above the rest of the MLS, even now, he still is.
I think even at this point, he is above everybody, and I don't think anyone gets near him in terms of talent. I think what's kind of starting to show is that he isn't able to be the same player he was a few years ago, right? And I think what that comes up mostly in how much he sort of picks and chooses his moments. But that's again another thing for him, is that his talent is unimaginable. Like it's way above everybody else. But the thing that kind of teams can maybe affect him through would be to cut off the delivery to him, or cut off the sort of passes to him as much as possible, and focus on the other players who are feeding him throughout the match. And I think that maybe Nashville did really well in, I want to say, in the first 30 minutes of that game here at Geodis Park, maybe 25 minutes. They did really well doing that. I think he touched the ball, like the first time he touched the ball was like 7th, 8th minute probably, where he had like an actual dangerous chance. So I think that'll be what I would target, is more so the other players. I think for him specifically, he's definitely beyond anything we've ever had in MLS. But again, when you're the greatest player to ever play, it's not just MLS. He's just great wherever he goes, even at his age right now.
Absolutely. Been on fire, and obviously had a ridiculous second half, and, secured the golden boot. VALAIR, we brought you on and we asked all those questions about Messi, but now we kind of get back to, at least let's start with tonight. A win obviously is a dream scenario. A draw maybe, and then take your chances. And penalty kick sounds like it would be right up there. But walk us through, what must Nashville do, or what's their approach even into this match tonight at 7:00?
I think it's a very simple one. I don't think you can sit and defend against Messi. I said that in the first game, which was not the first game of the playoff, the decision day, the last game, I should say. And I'll say it again. I don't think you can sit down and bunker down and hope to kind of keep Miami away. Miami is one of the best, if not the best. It makes it the best because they have Messi, attacking teams in the league. So what you need to do is try to match them by maybe not slowing down their strengths, but maybe by hurting them in their weaknesses. And Miami has a glaring weakness in defense. Their center backs are very prone to red cards or stupid mistakes here and there. They've allowed 55 goals this season. I think it's like the 5th or 4th worst in the East. So they're not this juggernaut that's not conceding goals. They very rarely get clean sheets either. So what I would say is that embrace this sort of shootout nature of it, which is really a dangerous game when you're going against Messi, but there's really no other way to go about it. So if I'm Nashville SC, the way they started that first half of just being gung-ho and going for it, obviously that game was at home, so I don't expect it to be to that level. They were pressing. At one point, they had like 2 or 3 players in Miami's half when Miami had the ball. I don't think we're going to see it to that level, but I do expect Nashville to go out there and give it their best sort of chance of going for it. And if you saw that first half on decision day last week, that's what I'm expecting from Nashville. Maybe if you do get the lead like they did on Saturday last week, don't slow down. Go for the third, go for the fourth. And Nashville, by all accounts, should have been 4-1 up by the end of that half anyway, but they missed their chances. And they just cannot afford to do that. If you miss your chances again, like you did, it's almost a guarantee you're not going to make it to the next round.
taking on Inter Miami. It's a best of 3. Valair corrected me thankfully earlier, because and that was one thing that when you talk about the gung-ho nature, the fact there's no goal component to this, not a European tie, I kind of like that. You're right. Yeah, I mean, hey, why not go for it? If you lose 6-1 but you went out guns a-blazing, you're not really in a massive hole that you can't crawl out of. It's just one match.
And that's really why that last game result being 5-2 doesn't really matter a whole lot, because if you look at the way Nashville played, I think Nashville played really well. They just missed their chances. And even up to when Miami took the lead at 3-2, Nashville, I think Sam Sturridge either hit the post or forced a really, really hard save from the Miami keeper. And, if that goes in and it's 3-3, it's a completely different ball game, right? So I think you can take solace from that if you're a Nashville fan. And for the Nashville players, I think now to have an experience of playing these guys, I think many of whom grew up idolizing these guys. It's not just Messi, right? It's Busquets, who's a World Cup winner. It's Jordi Alba, who's a World Cup winner. It's Luis Suarez, who's one of the greatest strikers to ever play. They grew up idolizing these guys, and now they're playing against them. And I think there's a shock amount for a lot of the newer Nashville players, at least. I know they played Miami earlier in the year, but when it's fresh, like what happened, and we asked Eddie Taxeth about it too, and he said, we're not going to play nice. We're going to play ugly this time around. And he these are his words, not mine. And I think there is a little bit of an emphasis on that, of like, play them at their own game. If you look at Busquets at any given moment of the game, he's in the referee's ear. The 90 minutes, he's in the referee's ear. So you have to match them at that level and that mentality. I know, we like to think of soccer players or professional sports as this like gentlemanly, like, high morals. No, it's win at all costs. I mean, you see it on the field, and that's what they have done. The Miami, the Big Four in Miami have done for 20 plus years now. So it's win at all costs for them, and it has to be for Nashville as well.
Should be a fun one tonight. It's at 7:00. It is on Apple TV, but I've been told that's free. No paid subscription needed on Apple TV, which is always nice. You can also see it on FS1 as well as Fox Deportes. Valair Shabilla, hopefully the next time we talk to you, we're talking about maybe an SC, maybe they go on the road and get it to penalties, shock everybody, and come back and host it next Saturday with a chance to close it out in the first round at home.
It's the beauty of the playoffs. I wouldn't say anything is impossible. It's one of those things where anything can happen in the playoffs. And I'll say about the Apple TV thing, it's not just on Apple devices. I think that's a common misconception. You can download it on Android or your TV app, or it's just the Apple TV app. So you can download it on whatever device and watch the game for free. I would watch it regardless tonight, because even if you want Nashville to lose, I guess, or whatever, I think it's just going to be a good sort of soccer game. And throughout the playoffs, I believe the whole thing is free too. So there'll be some good games to watch as well.
Looking forward to it. We always enjoy our time with our 615 soccer friend, Valair Shabilla. Valair, enjoy the match tonight. Enjoy your weekend. We'll catch up with you real soon, partner.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Valair Shabilla again from 615 Soccer, breaking all things down MLS playoffs. Again, they host Miami next Saturday, win or lose tonight. That 7 p.m. kickoff this evening is going to be interesting, but if NSC can scratch out a win, they could hypothetically clinch the series next week at home. That is already announced as a 6:30 kickoff, again, Saturday, November 1st. Tickets are available, and with Messi coming to town, Calvin, tickets probably going to be pricey, so be on the hunt for that. We're going to take a quick break. Long segment there, but we've got a couple minutes to wrap up hour number 1. We'll get into a little This Day in Braves history. We'll talk about the big baseball news. I'll let you infer what that means. Are we talking World Series, or are we talking coaching moves? Because both are impactful here in the state of Tennessee, to say the least. Calvin and I are back right after this. Look, MLB breakdown here on Main Street Sports Today.
Columbia Power and Water Systems is dedicated to bringing our customers reliable, local service. Whether you're turning on a light switch, your faucet, or streaming on TV, our dedicated team members from here in Murray County work every day to keep you on. If you need us, call us 931-388-4833 or visit cpws.com. CPWS, local service, local support.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
This day in Braves history on October 24th, and I flat out lost the year. Hold, please.
1995.
1995. Yeah, thank you, young Calvin. It's good to have a Braves fan in your life from time to time, folks. October 24th, 1995. Greg Maddux. Yes, Greg Maddux of the Atlanta Braves becomes the first pitcher in Major League Baseball history to win 3 straight Cy Young awards, unanimously sweeping that National League honor. He went 16-6 that year with a microscopic 1.56 ERA. That was the third lowest such ERA in the last 75 years. They don't make them like that anymore, Calvin. Greg Maddux, third straight Cy Young. This dude, his stats get more impressive. He's kind of like Tony Gwynn in that regard, or, some other statistical freaks you see across sports. His stats kind of get better with age, especially as this new era of baseball kind of continues to unfold. But, man, he was fun.
Yeah, and it was actually 94, which is kind of just makes it even more nuts because he won his 4th straight in 95. We don't – the guy's got a complete game named after him. Like when you throw a complete game in under 100 pitches, like he was out there throwing 80, 85 pitch complete games and just making dudes look stupid. And there's like players always talk about how velocity doesn't bother them. It's movement that bothers them. Like Greg Maddux never threw hard. Mm-hmm. He could just throw whatever he wanted, wherever he wanted it, and he was going to make you look stupid doing it. And he's one of the best all time for a reason. And I wasn't around for it, but I'm sure if Mo was on here with you, he could just tell you from a very firsthand account how fun it was to probably watch Greg Maddux during those years with the Braves.
Yeah, it was epic stuff. And, I grew up and was watching in real time, but wasn't really truly appreciating in real time. And I will say this, I didn't pitch a lot, but when I did pitch, my velocity was closer to Greg Maddux than my control was. That's is without a doubt. I tried to model my few limited mound appearances after him, but did not even scratch the surface because unreal stuff. One of the all-time greats. Yes, third straight Cy Young before he goes on to win 4 the next year. That was this day in Braves history. Calvin, tonight is the opening night of the World Series, but before we tip into that, I feel a little disrespectful kind of doing that, but we got to talk and we got to kind of get your thoughts. Big news for Tennessee fans, big news for MLB, big news certainly for the San Francisco Giants. Tony Vitello named the new manager out in the Bay Area.
Yeah, and he put Tennessee baseball on the map when Tennessee baseball wasn't really thought of as one of those national powerhouses like LSU in Florida and teams like that have been for all these years. But over the last couple of years, he won a national championship and he made Tennessee. He put them at the top of every preseason national title contender list for the last couple of years. And from a neutral perspective kind of point of view, I completely understand it. If I would want to take a big league manager job too. And I guess it's kind of half Buster Posey wanted to take a big swing. And I would imagine this is something that Tony Vitello, always had in the back of his mind that he wanted to at least try. Because because he's the first college coach to ever go straight to Major League Baseball with no MLB coaching experience. And Buster Posey's kind of brought a different point of view into that front office for the Giants, and we don't know how it's going to work out, but it's definitely going to be one of the top storylines all next MLB season. It's probably going to be one of the more talked about things once we get done with the World Series over the next couple weeks.
Absolutely. And, Tony Vitello did speak to reporters yesterday and telling the Knoxville News Sentinel. I mean, I kind of got to tip my cap when he says this. He said, quote, "It was selfish. It was personal reasons. I've always tried to be a good teammate, but I felt like I made a selfish decision, but one that I needed to make, and it was the right decision." I'm not going to knock a guy for, who had summited the mountaintop in college baseball. Why not try and check everybody? You don't get to be the manager at Tennessee if you also don't have some screws loose and think, maybe I could do that at the big league level. You are always hyper competitive. That's what makes these coaches, men or women. I mean, at that level, you're always kind of searching for that next level of greatness. And, we'll have much, much more on this story from a Tennessee angle as it kind of continues. And next year, obviously, we'll have a ton from the Giants angle. But for now, I wanted to pick Calvin's brain as we get into that. And I mentioned, it did feel a little squeamish mentioning that right off the rip on the night of the World Series. But Calvin, the 2025 World Series is here after kind of a long, lengthy, maybe not as much drama outside of one or two token Seattle series that I had hoped across the board. But we get here, and it's an unusual matchup. You got Toronto making their first trip since the early 90s. You got the Dodgers making their first trip since last year. The Evil Empire versus the team north of the border. Kind of give me your preliminary thoughts on what we might see in this series. Is it inevitable in your mind that LA wins this thing?
It feels inevitable just because the Dodgers are so dominant on both sides of the ball. They've got 5 aces on their team. They've got 5 dudes that could go be the number one pitcher on most of the teams in the sport. And even if their pitching does have an off night, they've got, I think, 3 MVPs in the lineup, 3 former MVPs, Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman. And it just feels inevitable. Like, they're so loaded on both sides of the ball, and they've dominated everybody they've played in the playoffs so far. And I think the Dodgers win either way. I think everybody's just hoping for a somewhat competitive series, and the Blue Jays don't bow out in 4 or 5 games.
That's my thing. Got a little rooting interest for the Dodgers, of course, because number one, Mookie Betts in that local tie, but number 2, the wow factor that we've already seen on full display of Ohtani. You always get into this debate too. We heard about it with the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, right? Everybody kind of wants to witness greatness, or at least a lot of folks do, and kind of seeing LA pull this off with Mookie, with Shohei, with Freddie Freeman for the Braves fans, out there. I mean, there's some angles that you could potentially root for these guys. I'm with you though. I just hope we get a good, if every game, even if it only ends in 4 or 5 games, but they're all close and nail biters, I'd be okay with that. But really, as a neutral observer, you're always just hoping that this thing goes 7. And if nothing else, Calvin, the memes are going to be epic coming out of this thing. We got Drake versus Kendrick all over again, partner.
Yeah, and for the most part, the entire playoffs, the American League has been super competitive. The Tigers and Mariners went 15 innings in the decisive game in that series, and then we got 7 games of Mariners, Blue Jays, and I kind of feel like America was rooting for the Mariners at that point. Just because, the Mariners, David and I talked about this a couple weeks ago, the Mariners hadn't been to the championship series, I think, since before I was born. When A-Rod and Griffey and the boys were lighting up baseball. And I feel like Seattle was America's team kind of throughout the playoffs. But now that Seattle's out, well, Seattle was, I feel like, the team most of the people outside of Los Angeles were rooting for. But I think that when it came down to it, even if Seattle wasn't the one to do it, I feel like just about anybody's rooting for the Dodgers to lose.
Yeah, and that will be a storyline to watch. If your team America, I mean, you're in a weird spot, right? If your team America, that means you got to also root for the Dodgers. So, kind of conflicted. I just hope we get some good games. Looking forward to. Also, hope this. I wouldn't be. I won't complain if this one lasts a while because they will start it at 7 tonight, and I'm hoping high school football. I can get home and at least catch some of the tail end of this one. Pitching matchup tonight, Blake Snell 3-0. Going to go against Trey Savage. You may not have heard of Trey Savage, folks. That's because he's making his 7th MLB appearance in game 1 of the World Series. Buckle up, young man. It should be a fun night. And, if nothing else, the Rogers Center up there in Toronto is going to be rocking. I saw a tweet, tickets, going north of $1,000, close to 2,000 for most of the seats. The famous hotel that's in the Rogers Center, that was completely sold out, as you might expect, but also was going to the tune of about $10,000 for a one-night stay. So if you ponied up, hopefully it's worth the bucks tonight because, again, Dodgers Blue Jays comes your way at 7 o'clock on Big Fox. It is going to be fun. Looking forward to it. They get it back on again on Saturday, off day on Sunday, and then traveling to LA Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. That is going to wrap up hour number 1 of Main Street Sports today. When we come back, we'll crank up hour number 2. Calvin and I will get into Titans. We'll get into NFL. We got some college football to break down. We got some other grab bag goodies, and we'll close it out with the 10-game wonder slate. 10 games, 10 hopeful winners. All that coming your way in hour number 2. Main Street Sports today, rolling right along after this.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Is your internet slowing you down? It's time for an upgrade. Whether you're at home, working from your home office, or at your business, it's time to unleash the speed you need with speeds up to 1 gig at CPWS for as low as $70 a month. Give us a call, 931-375-7777. Local service, local support, CPWS.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Hour number 2, Main Street Sports today, presented by our friends at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, is rolling right along alongside Calvin White, Wade Neely sitting in the saddle. And Calvin, going to do a little bit of an audible. We are talking football, and we will talk a lot of football in this second hour. But kind of to set the stage, we touched on it in the first hour, but this was kind of a wild and epic week. Not only for the coaches, not only for the players and the staff members and the fans at the TSSAA volleyball tournament, but it was a wild week for all of us in Main Street Preps world as virtually the entirety of the Main Street Sports Today crew was on assignment, at least for some portion of the TSSAA State Volleyball Championships. And so now that we do have at least a couple of champions crowned, I kind of want to just pick your brain. You were kind of approaching things from a Clarksville angle. Anybody else other than Clarksville?
No, just Clarksville.
You were approaching from Clarksville. I was tackling Creekwood. Mo was handling Summit, also handling Summertown. David Wilson was handling approximately 6 different schools, and our good pal Blaine Keller was kind of doing the same. I don't want to toot our own horn too much, Calvin, but we had pretty much wall-to-wall coverage of all of your state volleyball championships this week, in the mid-state for sure.
Yeah, I made it back over to Blackman last night for Clarksville to beat Arlington in 5 sets to finish in 3rd place. In Class AAA, it was the first time Clarksville had ever made the state tournament. David had coverage of Middle Tennessee Christian's first state championship yesterday. Summit beat Brentwood in Class AAA for the state championship today. I would assume Mo is going to have coverage of that one. Blaine was kind of hanging out with Merrill Hyde all week. We had coverage of just about every team in our coverage area throughout the state volleyball tournament in every classification just about.
Absolutely. And we'll start with single A real quick. They don't actually, we do. We do have a final result as Eagleville knocks off Gordonsville 3-1 in your championship match. That was a 1 p.m., your middle match, as it were. Props to Eagleville. Man, Eagleville winning state championships at a number that kind of reminds you of Summertown in that sense. They just win championships at a number of different sports, but they knock off Gordonsville. So Gordonsville is your runner-up. I mentioned the Summertown Lady Eagles. They finished 3rd. And a new format this year, as we've talked about a number of different times on this show, Calvin. But even with one loss, you still get to play a little bit more, and you still try and chase that 3rd place trophy. So props to Eagleville, who finishes 1st. Gordonsville finishes 2nd. And then Summertown takes 3rd. Earlier today, though, you touched on it. Summit knocking off Brentwood. First ever big dance, I guess, in a sense, for Summit, I believe I read. And not only do they make it, they go out and win the thing. And Calvin, the final score in this championship match today is out of control. I can't wait to see what Mo has lined up for the folks down there at Main Street Murray. They defeat Brentwood 3-2. First set was 25-23. Brentwood defeats Summit in the second set 28-26. A little bonus volleyball there. Brentwood rallies for another victory 25-19, but then Summit storms back. They take set 4 25-21, and then a 5th and deciding set for the state championship. Summit wins it 15-13. That's really about as close as you could ever expect, and that was your very first match of the day. Your championship decided in dramatic fashion.
Yeah, I remember I looked at the box score for that one earlier just because it was setting up to be a really good matchup on paper, and like you said, that's about as good of a game as you're going to get at a state title match. And that's back-to-back state title losses for Brentwood. They lost to Nolensville last year and, came even closer this year. But it's kind of cool for Summit to go out and win the whole thing in their first time ever going to the state tournament.
Props to them. And so Summit 1, Brentwood 2. Clarksville was your 3rd place finisher. So, at least battling. And I found that component fascinating, Calvin. You get eliminated from the championship pool, but kind of like Clarksville finishes 3rd, kind of like Summertown finishes 3rd, and Creekwood, the team that I was keeping tabs on this week. It could be easy to kind of just, check out and say, oh, well, we can't win the championship. But having to show up and win multiple matches from there on out to try and win 3rd, you don't get a true trophy. I mean, you get a 3rd place trophy the way I understand it, but that takes a little bit of resolve, and that kind of speaks to the character of these young ladies and these coaches and these programs in particular.
Yeah, and, I talked to Clarksville coach Glenn Fox last night after they came back, and they beat Arlington in the first set, then they dropped the next 2, and they were up 22-21 in the 4th and won it 25-23, I think. And then they won the 5th set 15-10 to get 3rd place. And, I was kind of talking to Glenn Fox, and it wasn't really a hard hitting question. Like, I wasn't trying to get anything out of him. I was just kind of simply joking. I was like, how much do you wish they didn't change the format now? Because they played by far their worst game of the year in their opening round game against Science Hill, and they got swept, but they lost all 3 sets by 3-4 points.
Mm.
And so they get swept, and then they beat Siegel and Blackman 3-1 each, and then they beat Arlington in 5 sets. And so I was like, how much do you kind of wish they didn't change the format? And he said he wasn't really a fan of it just because, like I understand it's the state tournament, and if you want to win the whole thing, you should probably just kind of plan on winning, but that doesn't always work out like that. And, I put it in one of my stories the other day. I think it was 2022. 2 of the 3 public school classification state champions came out of the losers bracket. And, it kind of adds a different layer to it when you're still able to kind of take your lumps in the tournament and you're still able to come up and win the whole thing. But I also understand the other side of it, where if you are coming out of that winner's bracket, you should get rewarded for winning and not losing. But from a neutral observer's point of view, it just added a different level of excitement when you were able to come up out of the loser's bracket and still win the state championship.
That's where I've landed after seeing it this week, and that's where I kind of initially leaned toward when they announced it. I kind of get the appeal perhaps, but there's something to be said, and it's not as if it doesn't occur. You just mentioned Creekwood was one of those teams in 2022, losing to East Hamilton, rallying, defeating Dyer County, and then knocking off East Hamilton for the championships. I mean, it's not as if it is uncommon or has not happened very often. So interesting to see, and I'll be real curious to see going forward how long that format continues. But props to our winners. MTCS knocked off Silverdale yesterday at 11 a.m. to win the small school Division II title. And then in the higher classification, it was Briarcrest 3-2 over CPA. So that's a wrap on volleyball, which means only one thing, Calvin. We gave you guys some of the schedule over the weekend. We're right into the sectional round. Socktionals, as you called it earlier, and you might be onto a little bit of a marketing trademark there. If you haven't filed your claim yet, I might beat you to the punch. Soccer sectionals this weekend. Socktionals. We'll be right back to state tournament action next week for girls soccer.
Yeah, and if the girls soccer tournaments are anywhere near as exciting as the volleyball tournaments were this past week, then I think we'll all be pretty satisfied with the kind of the level of play that we've seen over the last couple of weeks. And as we kind of get into the rounding out the regular season in football and getting into the postseason for football, and then, hopefully it seems like the football playoffs always deliver. So we're kind of setting up to have a really good fall sports season.
Absolutely. And Calvin, since you teed it up, and we do still have college football and NFL discussion coming down, but we do want to kind of go when we can. We like to go in chronological order from preps to pros, and so we'll attempt to do that. You mentioned high school football. In the blink of an eye, we only got 2 regular season games left. I'm curious, 2 things. Number 1, which game will you be in attendance for tonight? And number 2, what kind of playoff storyline is really, even if you're not going to be there tonight, has your eye in your coverage area this evening?
I'm going to be at Clarksville and Antioch tonight. That's going to be the
say less.
Yeah, it's going to be the de facto region championship game over in that region. Statistically, Clarksville is going to be the best defense that Antioch's going to see in the entire regular season. But I'm kind of interested to see how Clarksville kind of matches Antioch, because over the last couple of weeks, even though Antioch's put up a ton of points, they're not winning by much. It was either, I think they were off last week maybe. So 2 weeks ago, Antioch scored 64 points and they won by 2. So I'm kind of interested. I'm kind of interested to see how Clarksville, that they love to run the ball. So with as explosive as Antioch's offense is, maybe Clarksville can kind of keep it out of Andre Adams' hands for a little while and maybe limit the number of points they can score, and maybe make it a little bit more competitive. So I'll be at that one. That should be one of the premier matchups, at least in the mid-state this week. And then just for like playoff storylines, I guess I would kind of stay with Clarksville. A Clarksville area team hasn't won a playoff game since, I believe, 2022, just because over the last couple of years, most of them have been in Class 6A, and they've gotten matched up with that 6A Memphis region with Houston, Germantown, Bartlett. You know, the team that finishes fourth in that region over there is still one of the top 10 teams in the state, probably. So Clarksville area teams have gotten really unlucky over the last couple of years having to play that region. Clarksville's playoff path didn't get any easier because they're going to match up with the playoff region that has Ravenwood and Brentwood and Shelbyville in it. Right now it's kind of lining up where they might get Shelbyville in the first round. They beat Shelbyville a couple weeks ago in the regular season. So I have my eye on Clarksville, definitely see if they can win a playoff game for the first time in a couple years. And then I'd probably say Springfield and East Robertson, just because they're the two most dominant teams in Robertson County in Class 5 or Class 4A and Class 2A.
Yeah.
East Robertson still undefeated 8-0, Springfield 7-1. Springfield finished the regular season last year, I think 5-5, and went on a run to the semifinals before they lost to Page, who's been to I think 4 straight state title games. But Springfield down in Class 4A now, and they've got one of the most dominant teams, at least in the mid-state. So seeing if Springfield and East Robertson can, East Robertson was in a state title game 2 years ago before losing to Riverside, I believe. So just seeing if Springfield and East Robertson can kind of get some of that magic back and make 2 more deep postseason runs.
I'm with you. And East Robertson, they're not the only school, obviously, that does this, but I give schools a lot of props when regardless of how you end up in this equation. Some do it openly because their region is not as tough. But when you go out and schedule the way that East Robertson did, at Liberty Creek, Portland, at Kirkwood, I mean, kind of putting some heavy hitters. They got Greenwood, Kentucky tonight. That all sets up for a mammoth showdown versus East Nashville next week in Region 6 2A. Again, East Nashville dropping down to 2A this year. So that is kind of the type of scheduling that I like to see. And, maybe that's because, hey, we look at this region and say, all right, we pretty much have a pseudo cakewalk. Playoffs are almost guaranteed. So maybe why not go out and test? And it's going to be fun to watch some of these teams that either challenge themselves or kind of feasted on cupcakes, how they fare as we head into the postseason. Calvin, I did want to ask you that because on the opposite end of the spectrum, Calvin's going to a high-profile, high-stakes, big-time showdown with playoff implications. A little bit different end of the spectrum, but I'm going to be in a similar spot. East Hickman, with a record of 2-5, is traveling to Hickman County with a record of 2-6. And you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, are you into torture? Like what's going on here? But what if I told you, Calvin, the winner of this game tonight is going to the playoffs? They're in that 5-team region with East Nashville, with East Robertson and Houston County. So we got a rivalry game with a playoff ticket on the line. The overall record's not the prettiest, but had fun and Centerville last week. So much fun that I'm going to trickle on down there this week. It kind of shows, and I kind of like the way the TSSAA has done this. You still have some compelling stuff, even at the bottom of regions, deep in the regular season.
Yeah, and things get tricky with those 5 and 6 team regions where, kind of like in this one where you've got teams that only win, 2 or 3 games a year. And, when they match up late in the season like this, 2 teams that are at the bottom of a region, teams with 1, 2, and 3 wins are playing each other for a playoff spot. Now they're, just based off what you see on paper, history tells you they're probably not going to, make much noise in the playoffs. But
hey, don't go ruining my good vibes that I got going here.
I'm not, but
I know what you're saying.
To say you went to the playoffs, you can't take that away exactly. The playoff berth goes on your program history, and you can only play who's on the schedule. And one of these teams is going to make it into the playoffs, and the other's not, and that's why they play the games.
I tried to sell the sizzle a little bit there. I went maybe above and beyond. Calvin with a little dash of realism. But, it is a big-time showdown down there in Hickman County tonight. That's where I'll be just as soon as we wrap up. And, again, the winner of this game, East Hickman's got to go to Houston County. But if they win this game tonight versus Hickman County, they will go to the big dance. And if Hickman County wins, They don't have a region game remaining after tonight, so they will be in. So should be a fun little showdown on the opposite ends of the spectrum there as we get into the final 2 weeks of the high school football season. And Calvin, before we exit, and I guess you and I can break this down Tuesday, but given the week we just had, who knows if we'll see each other next Tuesday. A lot of games have gotten moved from Friday to Thursday next week. Do you have any still lingering Friday Halloween night games coming in next week?
I believe I do. I was pulling up the schedule as soon as you said that. Kirkwood is at Henry County on Halloween, and then Kenwood is at Dixon County in Montgomery County. And then in Robertson County, White House Heritage is at Westmoreland, Joe Burns is at Clay County, and Innovation Academy is at Red Boiling Springs. So we've got some Halloween night football action next week.
Looking forward to it. I know a boatload of teams were originally scheduled to have Thursday, and then some were, for Halloween-ish reasons, deciding to just go ahead and play theirs on Thursday as well. What that means, Calvin, is I'm sitting over here. I don't like to go pull the curtain back too much, but scheduling-wise for the Main Street Preps game of the week next week, I'm sitting here doing this because I got a number of different options at my disposal next week, and that one that I mentioned, East Robertson and East Nashville, could be a dandy. There's some other big games, but a lot of teams tonight will impact what happens next week. But before we get into next week and before we kind of get out of here, we want to remind you guys, coming up at the end of the show, 10 games, 10 hopeful winners. Calvin and I, we promised you guys some college football talk. We promised you some NFL talk. We're going to combo them here, and it'll roll into our 10-game wonder slate coming up at the end of the show. You're listening to Main Street Sports Today, where we are presented, as always, by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. We're back right after this.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Rocking and rolling here on Main Street Sports Today, where we are presented, as always, by our friends at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Wade Neely sitting in the saddle. Calvin White is with us. He had to pop off screen for just a moment, but he's coming right back. Don't you worry, folks. Calvin is going to return. There he is. A little behind-the-scenes time out there during the break. Calvin, college football, NFL. We talked about the last 2 weeks of the high school football season. I don't have a full-blown tear in my eye just yet, but it kind of dawned on me we're basically halfway and beyond for the regular season for sure for college football, and we're approaching that same spot for the NFL. Time flies, and we kind of roll along, and we'll start with some NFL discussion because the Titans, they're a team, obviously, their woes have been well documented. But we start to see teams that maybe are on the cusp of either breaking through or really kind of solidifying themselves as a player. And the Titans are not in that equation. I don't want to mislead our audience here. But on the other hand, the team they're playing this weekend, very much in that equation, the 6-1 Indianapolis Colts, who are undefeated at home. They welcome the boys in two-tone blue. It is a rare 3:25 kickoff here in the Central Time Zone. It's on a West Coast trip, obviously. And Calvin, the Titans are a 14.5-point underdog. I think that's partly to blame because the Titans not being so great, but also I think some of that now more than ever, the Colts just can't stop beating teams at this moment.
Yeah, the Colts have really been one of those surprise teams that, I think just about anybody wouldn't have expected them to be this good. And I think the biggest reason for that is Daniel Jones, and I didn't think that over the last couple of years that we would ever say that Daniel Jones is the reason a football team is good. But it's amazing what happens when you take a guy and put him behind a competent offensive line and actually give him some offensive weapons. Jonathan Taylor's been really good for them this year. David sent a tweet in our group text the other day. I think it said Jonathan Taylor has more rushing touchdowns this year than the Raiders do as a team. I think Jonathan Taylor's already at double-digit rushing touchdowns. He tore up the Titans when they played the first time. Daniel Jones has been really good this year, and I would assume that line kind of factors into. They announced it, I think, about an hour or two ago that Jeffrey Simmons and Calvin Ridley are both out this week for the Titans. I think this was going to be a lopsided game regardless, but it definitely is going to hurt the Titans even more when you take the only difference maker they have on either side of the ball out of the game in Jeffrey Simmons.
100%. And that goes to the point that I loosely made with VALAIR earlier. The Titans, and I've said this before with Mo a number of different times, the Titans, as they're currently constructed, need to have everybody healthy, need to have everybody playing pretty well, and maybe even need a break or two to beat quite a few teams. Definitely to beat a team of Indy's caliber based on their record that we've seen thus far. And you're right, Jonathan Taylor, he's your offensive player of the year thus far in the NFL. Massive betting favorite. First player to have at least 3 games with 3 touchdowns this early in the season since Derrick Henry in 2021. The cuts come deeper for the Titans fans when I mention that there. But 4th player in NFL history with 3 games of 3 rushing touchdowns or more in his first 7. This guy's been on fire, and I can't put a finger on it, Calvin. Part of me wants to say Daniel Jones is looking so impressive because what Taylor's doing running the ball. And then part of me also says Taylor's running the ball so well because they have to worry about, I can't believe I'm uttering these words out loud, but they have to worry about the passing threat of Daniel Jones. 1,700 yards, close to 1,800 for Jones, 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. It's kind of a perfect storm. The Colts are kind of an offensive juggernaut at 6-1. It'll be a long slog for the Titans, I feel, on Sunday.
Yeah, and especially without Jeffrey Simmons, Indy's offensive line is just so good. And even when the Titans had Jeffrey Simmons the first game, Jonathan Taylor, I don't remember what he ran for yardage-wise, but I think he had 3 touchdowns. I remember specifically there was one play where Jonathan Taylor, I think, was hit like once or twice at the line of scrimmage, and then he broke through and broke like 2 or 3 more tackles before he ran for like a 70-yard touchdown. And, Jonathan Taylor's a very good player in his own right, but when you've got 5 dudes that are, flying to the guy with the ball and they can't bring him down, that's not very good, and it's not going to work out most of the time. And the Titans just don't have any difference makers on either side of the ball outside of Jeffrey Simmons. And I don't know if you guys have discussed this on the show since it happened, but I think it was after the Titans played the Raiders, and I believe it was Mike Silver from The Athletic wrote a story, and he talked to a Raiders assistant coach who was anonymous in the story, and he said the Titans were the worst football team that he's seen in his 25 years coaching in the NFL. And especially with everything surrounding, ownership right now and how dysfunctional that situation is, I don't think the Titans have anything good going for them right now other than they have a rookie quarterback that you can hopefully develop and not ruin over the course of this season.
Yeah, I'm with you. And last week, as unlikely as it was, in my mind, there was a path to victory. And I said it on Monday's show with Mo too. The game really changed. And it's easy to simplify it this way, but the game massively changed. Who knows how it ends up, but it went in favor heavily of the Patriots when Jeffrey Simmons is dinged up, goes out, did not return, will not play this week. And as Calvin said, good luck to Titans fans heading into Sunday, because without Simmons, it could be a long day. The question might just be, is it more of a throwing show from Jones or is it more of a rushing show from Taylor? But who knows? Maybe the Titans can at least claw within that 14.5-point Vegas margin. There was a Thursday night football game, Calvin. It did kind of sneak up on me, at least, because of so much stuff that was going on with TSSAA this week. But last night, the Vikings are kind of toiling right now, but the Chargers kind of returned to some of their dominant ways. They now improved to 5-3 after 37-10. It was demolition systematically and swiftly. They lead that game 21-3 at the half, tacked on 13 points in the fourth quarter just to really kind of pad the numbers. Herbert looked good. That's the quarterback play for the Chargers. Carson Wentz did not look good, was banged up at one point and had to leave the game for a brief moment. Two kind of ships going in different directions. Don't know the Chargers are all the way back to where their mojo was the first couple weeks of the season, but they certainly looked like it last night versus the hapless Vikings at the moment, Calvin.
Yeah, I listened to a little bit of this one on the radio on my way home last night, and they said even before the game, Carson Wentz had his left shoulder in a sling, and he was basically useless on the left side of his body. And I didn't get to see any of it on TV, so I don't know how he looked physically, but on the radio, they said he missed a couple throws, and then there were a couple times where he got hit, behind the line of scrimmage. He got sacked 5 times, which I would not imagine is going to help that shoulder at all. He was 15 for 27 for 144 and 1 touchdown, 1 interception, sacked 5 times. And, at the beginning of the year, people were talking about the Chargers as potentially the best team in the NFL, and they kind of took some lumps there over the last couple of weeks, but especially last night. I'm not going to say they're, full on back and they're going to win the Super Bowl, but the Chargers look like, one of the top maybe 5-10 teams in the NFL right now.
They looked pretty good last night, and I mean that on the field with their play and their uniforms. They sprung the the mid-90s retro blues out, not the full powder blues, which are elite and kind of goated in that sense, but they had the putrid yellow combo. And even as a diehard Chargers uniform lover, that one was about as worse of a combo as you'll ever see. So they restored order on the field and in the uniform game last week. And Calvin, just as fate would have it, guess who the Titans welcome to town next week?
I'm going to guess the Chargers.
That would be the Los Angeles Chargers. So buckle up if you think it's bad. Sunday versus the Colts. Who knows how that game plays out, but you got another daunting one coming up versus the Chargers. And Herbert looked pretty good. Herbert's the ultimate back and forth guy, and we see some good, we see some bad. Last night we saw really good. 18 of 25 passing, 227 through the air, 3 touchdowns. Kamani Vidal was their big guy on the ground, 117 yards and a touchdown for the Chargers. Calvin, some other news and notes across the NFL landscape. No international game, which just when I kind of finally had gotten used to waking up at 8:30 and watching a little bit of ugly football, they take it away from me. But no international game. They got 2 more coming in the month of November. One in Berlin, I believe, and one certainly in Madrid. That's going to be interesting. But we also have a slew of byes. Arizona, Detroit, Jacksonville, the Raiders, the Rams, and the Seahawks are all on bye. So we kind of get a more conventional slate. Got 6 or 7 games early. Got 3 in the afternoon window. And then we'll close. Interesting Sunday night football game. When the schedule got rolled out, everybody kind of said, this is one of those games, because the Steelers, led by the ageless wonder himself, Aaron Rodgers, welcome his old squad to town. His new squad welcomes his old squad as the Packers and Steelers will get it on Sunday Night Football to cap the weekend, or Sunday, I should say. And Calvin, does Rodgers and the Steelers versus the Packers do anything for you on Sunday night?
It's interesting from a perspective, that just because that's Aaron Rodgers' former team, and Pittsburgh looks, I'm not going to say elite right now, just because that division's not great this year, especially with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson hurt. So I'm not saying the Steelers are going to go win the Super Bowl, but Packers and Steelers, both two really good teams right now. And Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks of all time. And where's it at? Is it in Pittsburgh?
It's in Pittsburgh. And the terrible towels will be going. Packers are favored by 2.5 in this one.
Even in Pittsburgh?
Even in Pittsburgh, which I found, a little interesting. And I'm with you, Kevin. The storyline obviously is there, and a lot of folks will tune in just for that factor alone. If this were the year after he had left the Packers, if he didn't have that weird Jets vacation there, or
cup of coffee,
nightmare, cup of coffee, etc. I think there might be a little more animosity here, but he'll probably be amped up. But I did find it a little surprising that Green Bay is favored by close to a field goal in that one. One other thing, our producer, Mark Rogers, is a big numbers guy, Calvin, and so this will tickle his funny bone here. The Packers are sitting there at 4-1-1. All 4 of their wins, they've scored exactly 27 points. They defeat the Lions week 1, 27-13, knocked off the Commanders 27-18. They had a loss to the Browns, tied famously the Cowboys 40-40, and then they picked up wins versus the Bengals 27-18, 27-23. If the Packers on Sunday night get to 27 points, I might like their chances.
Yeah. That seems like a hard thing to do, and those are a couple good wins outside of Cincinnati. The Bengals are terrible, but and I think Jaden Daniels was hurt during that time when the Packers beat them. But, the Packers have been really good over the last couple of years. The Steelers, not so much, just because they've been playing second fiddle to Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow the last couple of years. But both of those guys hurt right now, and maybe this can be the year that Pittsburgh not only returns to the playoffs, but actually wins a game or two. They haven't won a playoff game in a long time.
It has been a long, long time for them, and it'll be interesting to see how that game plays out and the rest of the season in that AFC North that you just mentioned a minute ago, because Lamar Jackson is scheduled to possibly return, it sounds like, when the Ravens take the field. And talk about a team that is in absolute turmoil and needs a win in the worst kind of way. The Ravens are 1-5 and take on the Bears, who are suddenly winners of 4 straight, 4-2 overall. So that is one of the big games coming up on Sunday. Also on Sunday, the Giants at Philadelphia. A couple of other ones along the way, and we mentioned it earlier. The Titans are a rare 3:25 kickoff, even though they're playing in the Central Time Zone. So plan accordingly. And Calvin, break out and make sure you send a text or congratulatory note to your favorite tight end, because Sunday is also, this week is National Tight Ends Day. We saw Arondé Gadsden get in the end zone for the Chargers last night. So the big fellas need a little love, and make sure you appreciate and celebrate all of the tight ends coming up this weekend. Speaking of celebrating, we are going to celebrate at the end of this show with something that I didn't know that we'd get to this week, the way our TSSAA duties did, but we wouldn't dare miss a 10-game wonder slate. 10 games, 10 potential winners against the spread coming up at the end. Calvin and I will give you our picks, and we'll tell you all about how we're going to get to those picks coming up in a moment. We're going to take a quick time out. We'll roll into some college football talk, and we will get you prepped for the final 2 segments of Main Street Sports Today, where we're presented by TOA of Columbia.
being in Tennessee, we wanted to try to keep it as local as possible. So we have an entire section of our menu that is just dedicated to local whiskeys like Uncle Nearest, Jack Daniels, of course, George Dickel, Nelson Brothers, Greenbrier whiskey, and all of our taps are all local. From 2 o'clock until midnight, we've got food every day for you guys. A good handful of appetizers, some entrees, and a couple salads and things like that. My name is Ethan Kanata. Please come down and see us at the Pick Lobby Bar here at the Omni in Nashville.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. It is hour number 2 of Main Street Sports Today, presented as always by our friends at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, alongside Calvin White, Wayne Neely sitting in the saddle. Mo Patton should be back with us on Monday, and buckle up because just as we mentioned, TSSAA volleyball coverage last week, TSSAA girls soccer coverage next week. So stay tuned as we get ready to roll in to next week. But before we get into next week, Calvin, we'll get into the Wonder Slate coming up here in a minute. You and I, at least, have not, and that's one of the things I did miss the most about our time apart on Tuesday, was we didn't get a chance to kind of rehash some of the goodies we saw from the college football landscape last week. Tennessee falls to Alabama. Georgia rallies and knocks off Ole Miss with 17 unanswered in the fourth quarter. We saw Arizona State knock Texas Tech from the ranks of the unbeaten. And then, just because that's the way and the world that we live in these days, Vanderbilt looked very much like the 2.5-point favorite. They easily cover that number, knocking off LSU 31-24. Calvin, it was a wild, wild week of college football, and we got another big slate on tap ahead.
Yeah, the Tennessee-Alabama game was really good for a half until Alabama pulled away late. We got, like you said, a really, really good game with Georgia Ole Miss, and there was a lot of people saying that Georgia upset Ole Miss. I'm never going to assume that Georgia at home is an underdog.
Same.
But, handled Ole Miss at home, pulled out that win. And, like you said, the talk of the town, at least here, is Vanderbilt right now. And game day is going to be in Nashville for the first time since 2008 this week against Missouri. The slate this week isn't the greatest, but, Nashville's going to get game day, and Vanderbilt's got another chance to knock off a top 15 opponent.
That was going to be fun. Nate Bargatze has been tabbed as your special guest picker for Saturday. James Franklin will not be making an appearance. That really just dawned on me. He pulled the appearance last week. I don't think that Vanderbilt factored into any part of an equation there, but that would have been a real hoot, as they say, if he decided to make his first public remarks this week rather than last week. But Calvin, you're right. The slate, not necessarily the best, but if history tells us anything, as chaotic as last week was, I don't think it could be anywhere near as tumultuous this week. But history kind of tells us these are the weeks, if a team is kind of dangling on the edge or on the fringe, or if they got some high expectations, it feels like these are the weeks when things seem a little too good and too quiet that you really got to maybe be on high alert.
Yeah, and some of these unranked teams and some of these matchups are still pretty good. We're going to get to the South Florida Memphis game, but Memphis was ranked last week before they dropped one to UAB. South Carolina was, I believe they were ranked to start the year. They're playing Alabama, but I think especially in the SEC, even some of these unranked teams are still a threat to give some of these ranked teams a game.
I'm with you, and it's going to be fun. And again, we'll pick those coming up in just a matter of minutes. But Calvin, while we're talking SEC, we meant to get this in our top story, but we told you guys there was some extra controversy going around, and so much so I had 2 or 3 folks that literally called me, not even a text or a DM, that called me today and said, "Hey, have you heard the news out of SEC land?" And I said, no, actually, I haven't. What's going on? But the big news is veteran SEC official Ken Williamson permanently suspended from conference officiating duties. Yellowhammer News was one of the early news breakers on this story yesterday. The decision to remove the longtime ref comes after an immediate review of 11 complaints, not 10, but 11 complaints against Williamson and his crew during that famous Auburn-Georgia game that went down earlier this month. And the SEC, they did not offer an official comment to the Yellowhammer News. But when you have 11 complaints, some may be valid. We obviously remember Kirby Smart appearing to take the time out and then, saying, I was just clapping. There was also a goal line review that left both fan bases really kind of scratching their heads. Georgia ends up winning the game 20-10. But that game in particular is one that yielded 11 complaints and, at least as it sits right now, has earned Ken Williamson, a longtime official, suspension from further SEC duties.
Yeah, and it feels like, especially in the SEC, that there's been some games this year where, there's just been some obvious calls that were missed, like the, I think it was the Auburn-Oklahoma game where Oklahoma had the guy wide open on the sideline. They acted like they were substituting him out, and they threw him a touchdown down the sideline. And, we talk about this Georgia-Auburn game. It just feels like there's been some games this year where there's been, a ton of calls missed, and people are always talking about how we need to keep officials accountable. And this is really the first time in a while that I can remember the league or anybody else kind of holding the officials to a standard and holding them accountable. But, with 11 calls being, sent to the league office, I would imagine that that's not something that the league wants, especially from one of their more tenured officials.
No, not a good look. And you mentioned it, even though it was not that same crew that play and that sequence earlier this year versus Oklahoma. Not saying anything, but just sensing a little bit of a theme. Or I do just want to point out that Auburn is kind of involved in a lot of these situations. Make of that what you will. Our good friend and Pulaski Citizen publisher Scott Stewart might have, noted Auburn fan Scott Stewart might have his own remarks, but different story, different day. Maybe we'll get him on next week to talk about that. Finally, in college football, and I'm only going to bring this up now because we won't get a chance to mention it in the Wonder Slate. But the Sharks are circling for our next victim in terms of the college football head coaching axe, and it is Luke Fickell. Wisconsin has been shut out back-to-back games. You got to go. Who did I hear? 2000 Baylor, I thought I read, was the last Power 4 team that has been shut out 3 straight games. And you may be wondering, maybe they'll get a touchdown. Maybe they'll score some points. Well, the bad news is they got Oregon on the road this week. They got to go to Eugene. And to make matters worse, just in case Oregon need a little motivation after the disappointing showing versus Indiana, Oregon's going to roll out these bad boys coming up this weekend, Calvin. Well, they might roll them out.
Those look nice.
How about that? Trust. This is. I know you're not referring to my Wolverines jersey here, but Oregon is going to roll out the Grateful Ducks. Grateful Dead is apparently doing a show in Autzen, I believe yesterday and tonight, perhaps even, and they're going to get ready and do that. So if producer Mark's got that, fire that up at your leisure, and we'll ooh and ah over Oregon, which wins the uniform battle more often than it loses, but no bigger loser in the uniform game this week than Miami. Have you seen those threads yet, Calvin?
I have not.
Miami, after Carson Beck threw 4 interceptions last week. I typed a text out to producer Mark. Technology works as long as you hit the send button. I apologize to producer Mark. I was hoping to show those Oregon unis from the bottom of the run of show there. But with that being said, the uniforms for Miami, they're going to wear camo uniforms. It is awful ballsy and it's awful risking fate to think about rolling out camo uniforms when your quarterback just threw 4 interceptions on the national stage last Friday night.
Yeah, and I wouldn't think of Miami as a school that would wear camo.
No?
I usually associate Miami. It's only because of the Heat, the Miami Heat. I usually just associate any Miami team with those Miami Vice jerseys that the Heat used to wear.
Oh, baby.
I believe it was Florida Atlantic that had or not Florida Atlantic, Florida International that wore Miami Vice themed jerseys a couple years ago. This is Miami, I'm assuming?
Yeah, here's Miami. And again, Carson Beck threw 4 picks last week, and now you're asking him to throw to guys wearing camouflage. I don't, make of that what you will, but it's probably not the look I'm going for. They do look cool, but I just have concerns.
If you took the U off the helmet, I would have no clue that was Miami. I would guess that that's a service academy.
Right. So those are kind of the bad, at least Calvin and I chalk it up to the end of the spectrum in the uniform game this week. So the Ducks are going to roll. And again, Luke Fickell, Sharks are circling. Be interesting to see if he gets knocked off. 3 straight Power 4 shutouts, or 3 straight shutouts, getting shut out by a Power 4 team, seemingly unfathomable. But them's the breaks, and this is the new Big Ten that we live in. So there are no gimmies, and best of luck to Luke Fickell and check in on all your Badgers fans this weekend.
Wisconsin trailed MTSU at halftime of a game earlier this year. Should have been canned after that one.
Say less. The Badgers fans probably knew what was up right then and there, but the rest of the nation is coming to it right now. Calvin, we're going to have to speed up a little bit on our Wonder Slate, which I apologize, but we also have a third guest picker this week. Calvin's going to give his picks against the spread. I'm going to give mine, and we're going to unfurl a scroll from our good friend Mo Patton, who couldn't be here today but did make his picks. Calvin, the format is pretty simple. I give the game, you tell me who you like, we mark you down, and then we keep tabs and revisit next week. So you will go first in all of these. I'll pick right after you, and then I'll give Mo's selection as well. Calvin, first game on the Wonder Slate. Number 8 Ole Miss at number 13 Oklahoma. It's an 11 a.m. kickoff on ABC, and Oklahoma is favored by 5.5. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, I'll take Ole Miss in that one. Ole Miss took Georgia down to the wire last week in Athens between the hedges. Oklahoma, I don't know how John Mateer has played since he came back outside of that first game where he threw, I think, 3 interceptions. But, even on the road, I'll take Kiffin and the Rebels in that one.
I'm going to take Oklahoma. I don't really like this. I just feel like Oklahoma kind of obviously stubbed their toe against Texas. And if Mateer plays well, the defense is elite. I think this might be a situation where they don't have to score a ton of points, but as long as they can score just enough, the defense will keep them in it. So I'm taking Oklahoma. And we go to our trusty scroll. Ole Miss is the pick for Mo. So Mo and Calvin take Ole Miss. Game number 2. You mentioned it a moment ago. Number 18, South Florida at Memphis. It's 11 a.m. kick on ESPN2. And Calvin, Memphis is favored by 6.5.
Yeah, I think I will go with Memphis here just because, they were ranked, until last week when UAB beat them. Just so happened to be the first game after they fired Trent Dilfer. Coincidence there. But, haven't watched much of South Florida or Memphis, but I'll take Memphis simply because they're at home.
Yep, I'm taking Memphis as well. I like them to cover, and I like them to rebound after kind of a stinker last week versus UAB. Mo takes Memphis as well, so all 3 of the boys are in on the Tigers and Coach Silverfield this weekend. College game day is coming to West End, a 2:30 kickoff on ESPN. Number 15, Missouri, is at number 10, Vanderbilt. And for the second straight week, Calvin, it's a 3.5-point favorite in favor of the Vanderbilt Commodores. Who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to take Vandy here just because, kind of similar opponents. I think LSU is better than Missouri. And, Vanderbilt was by far looked like the better team against LSU. They're at home. I don't think the atmosphere of game day is going to get to their head. So I'll take Vandy in that one.
I'm going to take Vanderbilt as well just because I'm out of the business of picking against Vanderbilt, especially playing at home. Missouri's a good team. This is a massive game. This is not an elimination game, but it's pretty close for these 2 teams in the college football playoff. We're going to speed along here. Up next, number 11, Mo is taking Vanderbilt, by the way, as well to complete us out there. Number 11, BYU is at Iowa State. Iowa State's favored by 2.5.
I'll take BYU just because BYU's been really good this year. I know Iowa State's at home, but BYU's been really good this year, and they're undefeated. And it's one of those situations where I'm not going to pick against you until you give me a reason to. So I'll take the Cougars in that one.
I'm going to go ahead and pick Iowa State, and this is the opposite of Vanderbilt. I'm going to pick against BYU until they lose because I'm just petty and snake bit. They burned me a couple weeks in a row, and maybe they proved me wrong, but I'm taking Iowa State in this game at 2.5. Mo is on BYU as well, so Calvin and Mo on the Cougs in this one. Cruising, final 4 minutes here of the show. Alabama is at South Carolina, and Calvin, Alabama's favored by 11.5 over there in Columbia.
Yeah, I think Alabama rolls in this one. They've been really good over the last couple of weeks outside of that lump they took in the first game against Florida State. They've been one of the better teams in the country. Beat Georgia and Tennessee over the last couple of weeks. South Carolina should be no different. I'll take the Tide.
Mo is going to take the Tide as well, and I am going to take the Tide. I don't like it. South Carolina looked awful versus Oklahoma. They're probably going to look awful versus Alabama, but Alabama, how much more gas do they have in the tank? They've in the midst of a gauntlet of a schedule here. Up next, quickly, number 22, Texas, -7.5 at Mississippi State. Who you got?
I'll take Mississippi State. Texas has been really bad over the last couple of weeks. Up until that Tennessee game, Mississippi State looked like one of the better teams in the SEC. They're probably not hanging around, in the upper tier of the SEC, but they're still a pretty good team, and especially at home, I'll take them against Texas.
Yeah, I'm going to take Mississippi State here. I like this spot for them. Texas looks very sleepy versus teams not named Oklahoma. Mo is going to take the Longhorns. And I don't know. I'm still not sold on Mississippi State, but I think Texas just a little sleepy right now still. Up next, my beloved Michigan Wolverines. They're 14.5-point favorites at Michigan State. Can they go into East Lansing and cover 14.5, Calvin?
I think they can. Michigan State hasn't been very good over the last couple of years. Michigan is still trying to, find their footing under Sharon Moore, but still ranked number 25 in the country. But, big rivalry game. I think Michigan comes out of that one with a win.
I'm picking Michigan. I don't like to pick my guys very often, and this is a rivalry game, but if they're going to come and win this one, they're going to do it and try and score some style points. Mo is on Michigan State. We got to go rapid fire here. Number 3, Texas A&M, 2.5-point favorite at number 20, LSU.
I'll take Texas A&M. Marcel Reed's been really good this year, mid-state product. LSU's been slipping over the last couple of weeks, and A&M hasn't given me any reason to believe that they won't go down and win, even if it is in Death Valley.
I'm taking LSU. It's a night game in Death Valley. I don't really got to say much more. Mo was on Texas A&M in this game as well. Final 2 games. Tennessee is at Kentucky. Tennessee favored by 8.5.
I'll take Tennessee. Kentucky's not very good. They outgained Texas by like 200 yards last week and still couldn't beat Texas in overtime. Tennessee's got a really explosive offense, and their defense has been better over the last couple of weeks. So I'll take Tennessee.
Well, I got you. You want it? Houston or Arizona State? Arizona State -7.5.
Arizona State.
Forks up for Calvin. Mo's going to take Tennessee and Arizona State. I'm going to take Kentucky and Arizona State, and I'm going to kick it to the weekend, folks. Thanks to Calvin. Thanks to Mark Rogers. Wayne Neely saying so long. We will see you next week here on Main Street Sports Today, presented as always by TOA of Columbia. Enjoy your weekend.